that got sinister there at the end. Sorry about that. Actually, no, I'm not going to apologize. I make no apologies for that. Folks, I'm Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, outside playing. That's what we're talking about today. We established sort of a baseline idea of that in the last video, so on pentatonic substitutions. So if you didn't watch that Blues Guitar 302, I would highly recommend that you go and do that. But this is, of course, Blues Guitar 303. We are going to expand upon this idea of outside playing. So what you will learn in this video is how to start thinking outside, minor, major, minor, blues scale, things like that, the pentatonics, which will always sound good, but kind of how to step outside that. We're going to learn about how to use the diminished scale. We're also going to work in that whole tone scale. And then we're going to talk about how to apply some concepts from the diminished scale pentatonically. So we'll go ahead and we'll zoom in and we'll check out some of these ideas. Dig it! Okie dokie, artichoke. So, outside playing. A couple of things you can actually do beyond, blues scale, minor and major pentatonics and things like that. I will say, when it comes to blues soloing, or really any type of soloing, whether it's a modal scale or something like that, or a modal piece, I should say, the pentatonic will always sound good. So I'm not saying here or suggesting, that you can't do awesome guitar solos using the pentatonics or your regular schmegular scales, okay? This is just for those of you who want to add a little zest to your playing. So we'll kind of start with the first thing I did there, which is that whole tone scale. A lot of people don't necessarily dig the whole tone scale. It's kind of like hot sauce, some people like it, or actually, it's cilantro. I like that example better. It's like some people really dig cilantro, other people are like, get that stuff away from me. They don't like it. But in any case, it is kind of convenient for us guitar players, because the scale, whoops. Lays itself out real nice on the guitar. And what the whole tone scale is it's a scale made up of whole tones or whole steps. So that's basically notes that are, if you're thinking about it here on this E string here, a fret, 2 frets apart, I should say. And I think people don't like it just because of that weird ethereal nature. But how I kind of like to work it in is really, it's great because, anywhere you're at, there's a whole, you can reach that next whole step. So you can kind of use it to trick listeners' ear and kind of pull them away from bluesland for a minute. And then again, all of this only really works if you're going back to bluesland. That example at the beginning was a lot, but because I tried to work in everything I was going to teach into one little jam. So I always like to do something like, or like, so that's that whole tone scale. The reason I'm putting this here at the very beginning of the lesson is because I don't use it all that often, to be quite honest with you. One, it's because people don't always like it. So that's reason enough alone for me to be, conservative in my use of that scale. And two, it's probably out of all of the scales you can use in a blues, it's probably the most, jarring to hear. So, and that can be good, whipping that out every so often at a blues jam or when you're hanging with your friends, making musical fusion to get a dirty look or get, raise some eyebrows. The main thing I want to focus on with this lesson here is that diminished scale. It's great. This also, in some ways, it lays itself out on the guitar neck easier than that whole tone scale. I will say watch out for the G and B string. Because the way the guitar is constructed or tuned as an instrument, everything is a fourth apart until you get to G and B, which are a third apart. So you do kind of have to move over, but it's a nifty little tool to have. So some practical applications here. So I don't know if you watched that video or not, but circling back to the second video on blues comping I did, where I talked about bringing in a diminished chord, you know, on the last two beats of the fourth, you know, bar of a 12-bar blues. This is where you would bring in the diminished scale for some nougat, some fun. It's really good for building anticipation of the four chord, which I kind of did at the beginning. And so what I like to use the diminished scale, I actually don't like to use the whole scale. Guys like Robben Ford do that, and to me it does get a little bit too on the jazz side of things, and I like to keep things more bluesy. I mean, it's just a stylistic thing, you know, do with, you know, this what you will. And so what you can do, rather than, you know, going up that whole scale, is you can do a series of minor third arpeggios, is basically what those are. Starting on the root. So, you know, that can be tricky because the tendency is to either do it too fast or too slow. But it's worth exploring that concept. Also, when you're just vamping, it's fun to kind of have these kind of ideas behind it, you know, messing around with the. You can also start a half step behind your root note. So again, everything I've taught in this series is in the key of A. So you can start, you know, behind that here on the 4th fret. And almost that, if you're gonna do like that whole minor third arpeggio run, and to build up anticipation of that 4 chord, which would be D in this case, that's actually probably not a bad method to do, because that last note takes you right to that scale to mess around in D bluesland over that 4 chord. Yeah, so even just so if you wanted to build anticipation, or if you're just jamming and you're vamping, it's a good way to kind of break yourself out of, you know, being too much in bluesland. So that is a quick overview of the diminished scale. So you know, it's worth having that whole thing under your hand and knowing where those half steps are. So all that diminished scale is there's a couple of them. There's the whole half version, and then there's the half step whole step version. I use the half step whole step version. Again, I'm a big fan of, you know, emphasizing half steps. So if you know where those half steps are, you know, that's good to know. And then starting again, half step behind your tonic. So where the next thing you can do, which is something I see a lot of guys do, like Greg Koch does this a lot, and for sure Robben Ford, is kind of thinking about that diminished scale pentatonically. So what I mean by that is using your pentatonics, but applying that half step, whole step idea. And you can really come up with a lot of interesting ideas. I mean, the whole crux of outside playing is that all of these notes are fair game. You know, you don't have to stick to or you can weave in notes behind that. So I mean, even at the end there, I kind of just went down that whole starting on A. You know, that's kind of a fun, wise-assy kind of a thing to do in just about any key, rock context, or any context really, any key, any context. It's just fun to bring in a little bit of chromaticism, as the kids say. In any case, so if we were taking this half step, whole step, wow, that's hard to say, idea, we can kind of play around with this. If we want to start in A, you can actually take it up a half step, and then a whole step. And if you're paying attention to where we're at on the neck, you'll see that we've kind of gone up a minor third here from the tonic A to C. So effectively what we've done is And that, if you're doing this kind of concept over that one chord, right? If we're thinking about this in 12 bars, that gives you the option to do that substitution we talked about in the last video here, soloing up a minor third from the bass, the tonic of your key. So that's really interesting to kind of come up with these, right? So half step to A sharp, B flat, and then you're going up a whole step from that to C. And if you really want to build anticipation for that 4 chord, you can take a couple of, maybe 2 bars of the 4 available to you over that one and get nutty. And here we are. It does take a little bit of finessing to kind of get that. And, when you're starting out doing this stuff, and even really just in general, you're probably going to hit, have more misses than hits. And that's why it's kind of important to not do this, overuse this stuff, okay? Which I personally have a tendency to do. It's always, you want to find your center and always take it back to either the main scale, again, A blues scale over any of the 4 chords in the blues, or the 3 chords in the blues, is going to sound alright because you're bound to hit some chord tones. So just having that as a failscape, or really landing on any scale related to the chord that you're playing, whether it's D blues scale or E blues scale, something to that effect, will bail you out if you get a little too lost or things get a little bit too out. This really only works if you bring it back. Like I said in the last video, 70% of the time I'm sticking diatonically, so that means I'm soloing in A blues, D blues, E blues, depending on what chord I'm soloing over. But again, just going up a half step, whole step, half step, whole step, and then half will also bring you to E. So you can also get there, you can use that half step, whole series of half steps and whole steps using, the same shapes that you know and love of your blues scale and your major and minor pentatonic scale to build up anticipation of each chord, and then, not be afraid to bring in notes that maybe are outside the, not that there's anything wrong with, you can even kind of come out of that and start tying them together, right? So like if I wanted to do a whole tone scale run, the sky is really the limit with all of this stuff. So I'm not, again, with this last lesson here and some of the others in the 300 level here, you're not walking away so much with any lick or anything like that. It's just to give you kind of an idea, a starting point to kind of, I really want to encourage you to use these concepts and not do it how I would, but do it, or even how Robben Ford would do it, but how you want to do it, finding your own voice. So for review, we've got our diminished scale that we learned how to turn into a series of minor thirds. Arpeggios. What's great about that diminished scale is it's really just 2 arpeggios stacked on top of each other. And then we took that same concept but applied it a half step behind our root to kind of build anticipation of that 4 chord. Whoops. Right? And then we talked briefly about, not being afraid to just mess around with those half steps up and down the neck, soloing with changes, over changes, through changes, or, what have you. And then briefly touched on that whole tone scale. Whoops. And then applying the diminished scale pentatonically by going up or even down. I didn't cover that, but obviously it works down. A series of half steps and whole steps, making sure that we, bring it back to some type of tonal center, whether it's the A, major scale, minor scale, blues scale, or, basically bringing it back to either the 1-chord scale, the 4-chord scale, or the 5-chord scale, so that you don't lose the listener, So I hope that makes sense. That was Outside playing your final lesson here in blues guitar. Thank you so much for watching the video today. Really does mean the most. Thank you if you watched all the videos in this series from Blues Guitar 101 all the way on up. You are very near and dear to my heart if you did that. Of course, this whole little series here was designed not to so much be a comprehensive blues guitar course to end all blues guitar course. This is really just to kind of get your feet wet in blues as a genre, and then maybe give you some avenues to go down. So I hope that is, if you stuck around for all of those videos, I hope that is what you got from them. I would appreciate it if you would consider liking this video if you did like it, and maybe stick around by subscribing and ringing the bell and all that kind of stuff for more guitar lessons, historical deep dives, and things like that. I would also appreciate it if you would follow the links down below to give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, things like that. Also linked down below is my brand spanking new album called Imaginary Songs, in which I did employ Mr. Diminished Scale and all manner of bluesy fun for your listening and dining pleasure, folks. And you can't beat that. So if you want to see me actually do this stuff rather than teach it, that would be a good place. You can also see me do it live under the pressure of a live audience here every Tuesday for Musical Hangout, the live music experience of this holly jolly new year. That's all I wanted to say, so I just want to wrap it up by saying thank you so much for watching. It really does mean the most. I'm Zach Hval, singer, songwriter, guitar player extraordinaire, signing off, reminding you that every day may not be good, but there's something good in every day. Bread is bread, cheese is cheese, praise God. Ha-cha-cha!
Hallelujah! Hallelujah!